Next from the Netherlands, we have Khaleel Rajwani speaking on the topic cultural artifacts and endangered species.
When Islamic State militants walked up to the great gates of Nineveh, they felt extremely powerful, for they were about to use their secret weapon. It wasn't a new gun, or a biological weapon, or even a bomb. What they held in their hands was only a hammer. But they knew that this hammer was more powerful than any bullet. And so they walked up to the gates, and they began to deface a 2,000-year-old statue of the winged bull Lamassu. Iraqis and Syrians watched in horror as part of their cultural heritage was destroyed. You might have even seen this on television. Political and military groups throughout history have made intentional efforts to destroy cultural heritage. In 48 BC, Julius Caesar burned down the Library of Alexandria, the epicenter of ancient scholarship. In the 16th century, King Henry VIII dissolved the British monasteries, destroying some of the oldest Christian relics. And today, Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, and other fundamentalist groups continue the onslaught of historical buildings and artifacts that go against their teachings. But why are these artifacts so important? Think of history like a giant conversation. People of different time periods, regions, and cultures all speaking with one another. The manuscripts of Alexandria showed us the thinking behind some of the first engineering. The British monasteries gave us a unique perspective on medieval architecture. And the statues of Lamassu in Iraq were some of the last remnants of a once thriving Assyrian civilization. When we lost these artifacts, we lost irreplaceable connections to the voices of the past. But the value of cultural artifacts extends beyond historical knowledge. When we visit the paintings of Van Gogh, we are given a glimpse into human emotion. Pilgrims to the mosques of Mecca see their religion in a new way. When we visit the remains of the Nazi concentration camps, we are reminded of what is fundamentally inhumane. These experiences with cultural artifacts are necessary for finding meaning, identity, and ethics in our lives. So it's scary to think that, as journalist Sharon Waxman put it, the destruction of antiquities has become yet another weapon in the modern clash of cultures. These acts don't just harm one culture, they harm all of us. They rob us of what is fundamentally human: diversity, expression, and history. And sadly, these cultural symbols have become an endangered species. We must invest more in preserving these artifacts. With the power of technology in our pockets, individuals can document at-risk historical sites and artifacts. Endangered museums and collectors should be encouraged to transfer their collections to safer storage. But on top of that, we need to take a stand as an international community. The destruction of cultural artifacts must be formalized as a crime against humanity. For what greater symbol of our humanity can there be than the products of our very culture? Cultural artifacts are not just expensive objects in museums or tourist sites that we visit on vacation. They are the key to understanding who we are, where we come from, and what we strive for. They are the last remains of the past and all that we can leave for the future. And so, when hammers pierce the great facades of Nineveh, Iraqis bled, Syrians bled, we all bled. And we will continue to bleed long after the violence has ended. So let us preserve these cultural artifacts while we still have the chance. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Questions from the audience? I have a question at the back.
Do you have to send?
Sorry, missed that.
So, according to your speech, these cultural artifacts are completely irreplaceable. Nevertheless, we have already digitalized some of them. We have them like scanned or taken pictures, for example, of old portraits. So, do you really think that these pictures or these scans that completely copy the real artifact are not a perfect replace for them?
I 100% agree. And I think that these interpretations, the replicas, the photos, will never do justice to the original awe or sense of humanity that we feel when we see these artifacts. But I think the sad reality is that in many situations in war zones and conflict zones, it's a bit too late to be trying to save some of these. So we have to document these things while we can. For example, today in Syria, a famous example is the city of Aleppo, where there's been a lot of bombings, and we can't actually really assess the damage that has been done to our cultural artifacts. And so we can only hope that people in Aleppo have been taking pictures and notes and recording these artifacts so that maybe in the future we can create the replicas, or that we could at least have some sense of what was in this great city of Aleppo now that they had the Syrian civil war.
Okay, take a question here.
Hi, very well said, very well spoken. Just one question. What would you like to say to people of Nepal who in this devastated earthquake lost everything? A lot of historical side, a lot of cultural side. What hope or what message do you have for them? Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a great question, and sometimes the reality is there's nothing we can do to save these things, and natural disasters are one of those cases. And I think going into the future, the hope and the optimism would be that those people who have survived and they know about this culture in Nepal and they understand the artifacts and the religious symbols and their culture, that they will vocalize this to the world. And recording these things isn't just in the form of pictures, but also, we can record documentaries, we can record videos and interviews of what people have to say about the culture that they lost. And another, I think, maybe more hopeful thing is that when people talk about what they lost through losing a cultural artifact or something in a natural disaster, our sense of value for these things really increases. And so it's a reminder that we actually should be valuing and cherishing these things while we can.
Let me take a question at the back there.
Awesome stuff, Khaleel. What we see with fundamentalist groups is that they're tearing down our culture, but can we use culture to tear down such extreme ideologies?
I definitely agree that we can, and I think that one of the huge benefits of having these cultural artifacts is actually that it really gives us a sense of place and purpose in our lives. And to point to an example, maybe for example, in ISIS, when there's historical mosques and monuments that really connect people with certain religion or certain identity, when they attend these mosques, when they learn about their history, when they do prayers in these mosques, they really feel a sense of connection and identity and purpose and value. And if we can promote that, within a younger generation, then hopefully they will not grow up hating culture, but rather appreciating it and loving it.